Mayo and Meatball's Dream 3 of 4. Audiobook number 13 of the RV Family Series. Chapter 21. The Dig. The words "find it beneath the roots" echoed in Mayo's mind as he walked out of the diner, Meatball trailing at his heels. Earl's cryptic warning lingered in the air, like the faintest hint of something he couldn't quite grasp. But it was enough to fuel Mayo's curiosity. Something was hidden here. Something buried deep in the earth of Pine Ridge. "You sure about this, Mayo?" Jesse asked, walking beside him, the skepticism evident in his tone. "I mean, digging around in the woods because some old guy tells you to?" "I have a feeling," Mayo said, glancing over at his brother. "Something's calling me. You heard the trees, right? They're trying to tell us something." Jesse rolled his eyes. "You've got a wild imagination, you know that?" "Maybe," Mayo said, but there was a fire in his chest now, a deep pull he couldn't ignore. "But something's off about this place. I have to find out." As they made their way to the edge of the town, the towering pines loomed larger, casting long shadows across the ground. The air seemed to shift, thick with the weight of hidden secrets. Meatball, ever the faithful companion, trotted ahead. "I've got a good nose for secrets," he said with a wink, his one ear flopping over as he bounced along. "Let's see if I can sniff out some clues." The trees whispered again as they approached the forest line. Mayo couldn't make out the words this time, but he could feel the weight of them, like the very earth was trying to tell him something. When they reached the base of the trees, Mayo paused. He had no idea where to start. The forest stretched on in every direction, the ground thick with roots and fallen leaves. But something about the area in front of him felt different. "This is the spot," Mayo said, kneeling down. He brushed the dirt away, revealing a patch of soft, slightly disturbed earth. "Are you serious?" Jesse said, raising an eyebrow. "You're actually digging?" "There's nothing here but dirt." "I don't know, Jesse," Mayo replied, determination in his voice. "There's something buried here. I can feel it." Mayo grabbed a small stick and began scraping the earth away, his fingers digging into the soil. It wasn't long before the tip of the stick hit something solid. He stopped, a thrill running through his veins. "I knew it," he whispered. "There's something here." Jesse crossed his arms, skepticism still heavy in his voice. "It's probably just an old rock or something." Mayo didn't care. He continued to dig, his hands now moving faster, the dirt flying behind him. Finally, with a few more swift motions, he uncovered what appeared to be a small, weathered wooden box, half buried beneath the roots of an ancient pine tree. "I found it," Mayo said, breathless. He carefully pulled the box out, dusting it off. It was old, the wood cracked and faded, but it felt important. "Well, what are you waiting for?" Jesse asked, a little intrigued now. "Open it." Mayo hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of the moment. This was it, the mystery that had been gnawing at him since they arrived. Slowly, he opened the box. Inside, there was a small, folded piece of parchment. Mayo carefully unfolded it, revealing a map, an old, tattered map of Pine Ridge, with strange markings and symbols he couldn't decipher. At the center was a large X, right in the heart of the forest. This is it," Mayo said, excitement rising in his chest. "This is what the trees were trying to tell me. Whatever's hidden here, it's connected to this map." Before he could say anything else, a rustling sound came from behind them. Mayo whipped around, his heart pounding. Standing at the edge of the trees was Earl, the old man from the diner. His face was stern, his eyes shadowed. He stepped forward slowly, as though expecting Mayo to have found something. "You found it," Earl said quietly. "You've uncovered what the town has tried to bury for years." Mayo felt a chill run down his spine. "What's on the map? What does it mean?" Earl's eyes flickered to the map in Mayo's hands. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "It's a map to the old well, the one they sealed up years ago. But that well, it's not what it seems." There's something dark buried deep beneath it, something the town doesn't want anyone to find. Mayo's fingers tightened around the map. What's in the well? Earl's face grew pale. A secret too dangerous to know. But you've already started. You can't stop now, can you? Chapter 22. The Secret Beneath the Well. Mayo's heart raced as Earl's words echoed in his mind. A secret too dangerous to know. The weight of the map in his hands felt heavier now, its edges worn and frayed, as if it had been passed down through generations. The markings on the parchment seemed more than just lines and shapes. They felt like a warning, like a guide to something that should have been left alone. "You're not making sense," Jesse said, his voice tense. "What do you mean something dark beneath the well?" Earl glanced around nervously before leaning in closer. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "The well isn't just a well. It's a seal to something that was buried long ago, something the people of Pine Ridge didn't want anyone to find." Mayo felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. "What is it? What's down there?" Earl's eyes grew distant, lost in some painful memory. "A creature. Something that can't die. It's been waiting beneath the earth, hidden away for generations. They thought sealing it in that well would keep it from getting out. But some things can't be kept buried forever." Meatball, who had been silently listening, perked up his ears. "You hear that, Mayo? There's something bad down there. I can smell it. It's been festering for too long." Mayo's thoughts raced. Could this be what the trees were trying to warn him about? Could the whispers be connected to whatever was locked away in the well? Why didn't anyone tell us about this before? Jesse asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. Earl's face hardened, the weight of years of silence in his gaze. Because if they did, it would have caused a panic. The town's always kept the secret hidden, passed down through generations. But now that you've found the map, it's too late to turn back. Mayo's mind spun. "So what do we do now?" "You need to decide for yourself," Earl said, his voice low and grave. "If you go to the well, you might uncover the truth. Or you might awaken something that's better left forgotten. It's up to you. But be careful. There are others who'll want to stop you." Jesse stepped forward, shaking his head. "We're not digging into this. I don't care what kind of weird secrets this town has. It's not worth the risk." Mayo looked down at the map again. The X marked a spot deep in the forest, far from the main road, a place no one ever seemed to go. A dark feeling settled in his stomach, but his curiosity was stronger. "I can't just leave it alone, Jesse. If there's something dangerous down there, we need to know. We can't just pretend it doesn't exist." "You're crazy," Jesse muttered, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his voice. Earl seemed to sense the conflict between the brothers and gave a small nod. "You'll need to go alone then. The rest of you, don't follow. Trust me, you don't want to get involved." Meatball jumped up onto Mayo's shoulder, his tiny body pressing close. "I'm with you, Mayo. We'll face it together." Mayo turned to look at his family. His father had always taught him to be brave, to face challenges head-on. But was this really something he should confront? The weight of the decision hung heavy on his chest. He knew his brothers wouldn't understand, but he couldn't back down now. "Are you sure about this, Mayo?" Mr. Wexler asked, his voice softer than usual. Mayo nodded, feeling a strange sense of resolve. "I have to, Dad. If there's something dangerous down there, we need to stop it before it's too late." Mr. Wexler looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Just be careful, son. And don't do anything reckless." With that, Mayo turned and began walking toward the edge of the forest, the map clutched tightly in his hand. His mind raced with questions, but his feet moved forward, following the path the map laid out for him. The forest was quiet now, the whispers of the trees growing faint as he ventured deeper into the woods. His steps were cautious, the ground soft beneath his boots. Every so often, the silence was broken by the faint sound of wind through the pines, but there was no turning back now. Soon, the trees began to thin, and before him stood a small clearing. In the center was a well old and weathered, with moss creeping up its stone walls. The top was covered with heavy boards, nailed down tightly. But even from a distance, Mayo could feel it, the dark energy emanating from the well, pulsing in the air. "This is it," Mayo whispered to Meatball. "This is where it all started." Meatball hopped down from Mayo's shoulder, his eyes narrowing. "Let's get this over with." Mayo approached the well cautiously, the hairs on the back of his neck standing up. He felt like he was standing on the edge of something dangerous, something that could change everything. He took a deep breath and reached for the boards, ready to uncover whatever had been hidden here for so long. Chapter 23: The Awakening. Mayo's hand trembled as he grasped the edge of the old boards covering the well. They were heavy, aged with time, and their surfaces worn smooth by the elements. But there was a force inside him now, driving him forward, a sense that whatever was buried beneath this well was more important than anything else. He had to know. He had to face it. "Are you sure we should do this?" Meatball asked, his voice unusually serious. "I can smell something dark down there, Mayo. This place doesn't feel right." Mayo paused, glancing down at the tiny bulldog at his feet. "I have to, Meatball. I can't ignore it. Whatever this is, it's part of the mystery that's been hiding in this town for generations. We can't leave it buried forever." Meatball's one ear twitched, and he gave a low growl. "Just be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with." Taking a deep breath, Mayo began to pry at the boards one by one. They creaked under his hands, resisting at first, but slowly they loosened. The sound of each board, coming free, felt like a countdown, a ticking clock that echoed in the pit of his stomach. Finally, with a soft thud, the last board gave way and Mayo stepped back. Beneath the boards, the well's stone walls were darker than before, the shadows seeming to stretch out like hands reaching for him. At the very bottom, a faint glow flickered, almost like a pulse. "That glow," Mayo whispered. "What is that?" Meatball's nose twitched. "It's coming from the bottom, like a heartbeat. Whatever's down there is alive in some way. You sure you want to go down there?" Mayo hesitated for a moment, his mind racing. Every instinct told him to run, to leave this dark place behind. But his curiosity, his need for answers, outweighed the fear creeping up his spine. Slowly, he lowered himself to the edge of the well, peering down into the darkness. "Stay close, Meatball," Mayo said, his voice barely a whisper. "I think we need to find out what's down there." Meatball hopped up onto the well's edge and peered down. "If we're doing this, then we're in it together." With a deep breath, Mayo lowered a rope into the well, the fraying fibers slipping through his fingers as he secured it. He glanced up one last time at the sky, the evening light dimming as the sun sank lower in the distance. Then, without another word, he gripped the rope and began to climb down. The air in the well was damp and cold, each breath feeling heavier than the last as he descended. The glow from below grew brighter, pulsating with an eerie rhythm. Mayo's heart thudded in his chest, his mind racing with possibilities. What could be down there? What was the town hiding? As his feet finally hit solid ground, Mayo's eyes adjusted to the dim light. The space was small, just enough for him to stand, but the walls of the well stretched out in all directions, covered in moss and strange carvings. The glow was stronger now, emanating from a stone pedestal in the center of the chamber. "Mayo, you need to hurry," Meatball called from above, his voice echoing down the well. "There's something wrong. I can feel it." Mayo stepped closer to the pedestal, his breath catching in his throat. Atop the stone was a crystal, glowing faintly but steadily. It pulsed with an unnatural energy, like the beating of a heart. As Mayo reached out to touch it, a strange warmth radiated from the stone, wrapping around his fingers. The moment his skin made contact, the ground beneath him trembled. The walls of the well began to shake, and the glow from the crystal intensified, blinding him for a moment. "What's happening?" Mayo whispered, but the answer came too late. A low rumble filled the air, like the sound of something awakening from a deep sleep. The crystal cracked, its surface splitting open with a sharp, high-pitched sound. A wave of energy exploded outward, knocking Mayo back to the ground. He scrambled to his feet, panic rising in his chest.
Mayo.
Meatball shouted from above, his voice frantic.
Get out of there.
The energy from the crystals swirled around the well, dark tendrils of power reaching out like a storm. Mayo's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. The seal had been broken. Whatever had been buried beneath the well was now awake. The ground shook again, and the well's walls groaned as if they were being torn apart. The darkness around him deepened, and for a brief moment, Mayo saw something moving in the shadows, a shape that seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. He didn't wait to see more. With adrenaline flooding his veins, Mayo scrambled to his feet and began to climb the rope, his hands slipping on the damp fibers. The well was coming apart, and he had to get out. Up above, Jesse's voice called out, "Mayo, hold on. We're pulling you up." Mayo's hands were shaking as he reached for the rope, climbing faster now, desperate to escape the darkness that was closing in. He could hear Meatball barking frantically from above, but he couldn't focus on anything but the terrifying rumble of the well collapsing behind him. With a final burst of energy, Mayo emerged from the well, tumbling onto the ground as the well's opening collapsed in on itself, the earth shaking with a final, deafening roar. Mayo lay there for a moment, gasping for air, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. The ground beneath him was still trembling, but the glow from the well was gone, replaced by the silence of the forest. "Did you see that?" Jesse asked, his face pale. "What the heck was that thing?" I don't know," Mayo gasped, his mind spinning. "But whatever it was, it's out now." Meatball leaped into Mayo's arms, his little body trembling. "We have to stop it before it spreads." The forest around them seemed still, but Mayo knew that this was just the beginning. Whatever had been awakened was out there now, and Pine Ridge was no longer the quiet town it once seemed. Chapter 24. The Hunt Begins. Mayo stood up shakily, his legs still trembling from the adrenaline rush. The forest around him seemed unnaturally still, the quiet after the chaos almost suffocating. The weight of what had just happened was settling in. Whatever was now unleashed from the well was out there, and they had no idea what it was or where it would go. But Mayo could feel it, a presence that had been awakened, something ancient and powerful. "We have to move fast," Mayo said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "That thing, whatever it is, it's out there now. And it's not going to stop until it's found whatever it's looking for." Jesse, who had been quiet since Mayo emerged from the well, finally spoke up. "So, what now? We're just supposed to chase after something we can't even see? How do we know it's not already heading toward town?" "We can't let it get to town," Mayo said, his mind racing. "We have to find it first, before it can hurt anyone else." Meatball barked in agreement, his small body tense with anticipation. "That's right, Mayo. We can't let it run wild. We've got to track it down." Mayo looked around, trying to focus. The well had collapsed, and the darkness of the forest seemed to stretch on endlessly. But there was a faint smell in the air now, something pungent and otherworldly, like something ancient had stirred. "I think it went this way," Mayo said, taking a deep breath and setting off toward the tree line. The energy it left behind. "I can feel it." Jesse sighed and followed, reluctantly at first, but he couldn't shake the worry in his eyes. "I'm still not sure how we're supposed to stop it if we find it. We don't even know what it is." "We'll figure it out," Mayo replied, his voice firm. "We have to. For Pine Ridge. For everyone." The three of them, Mayo, Jesse, and Meatball, pressed forward through the dense woods. The trees loomed overhead, their branches heavy with moss and age. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. As they moved deeper into the woods, Mayo began to feel it more clearly, the pull of the energy that had been released. It was faint at first, like a distant hum, but as they walked, it grew louder, stronger. He could feel it in his bones now, the thrum of something ancient and powerful moving beneath the earth. "This way," Mayo said, turning sharply to the left. The trail was faint, almost invisible to the naked eye, but Mayo could feel it pulling him forward, guiding him. Meatball trotted beside him, his head low, sniffing the air. "It's close. I can smell it. It's been here, but it's hiding now." Jesse paused, glancing back toward the town. "What if it's too late? What if we can't stop it in time?" "We can't think like that," Mayo said. "We have to try. We can't let it hurt anyone." The forest seemed to close in around them as they pushed on, the trail becoming clearer with each step. The energy grew stronger, and Mayo's heart began to race. Something was ahead. Something dangerous. Then, they reached a small clearing. In the center of the clearing was a large, jagged rock formation, almost like a makeshift altar, overgrown with vines and moss. The air here felt heavier, as if the very ground was charged with energy. And in the middle of the clearing, Mayo saw it, movement. Something was there, something big. Meatball's body tensed, and he gave a low growl. "It's here. We have to be ready." Mayo's eyes narrowed as he scanned the clearing. There, in the shadow of the rocks, he saw it, a silhouette. At first, it looked like a shadow, a blur in the corner of his vision, but then it took shape. It was large, hunched over, and covered in dark, ragged fur. Its eyes gleamed with an unnatural glow, and as it moved, the ground beneath it seemed to tremble, just like the well had. "That's it," Mayo whispered, his voice shaking slightly. "That's what came out of the well." The creature's glowing eyes locked onto them, and for a moment, there was a tense silence. Then, with a low growl, it lunged forward. "Get down," Jesse shouted, but it was too late. Mayo dove to the ground, narrowly avoiding the creature's massive claws as they swiped through the air above him. The creature let out a guttural roar, its breath hot and foul. "Run!" Meatball yelped, barking frantically. "Get to cover." Mayo scrambled to his feet, but before he could move, Jesse was already pulling him toward a nearby tree, hiding behind its thick trunk. The creature was still there, its glowing eyes searching the clearing for them. The forest around them felt alive with tension, the trees rustling as if they, too, were afraid of what was hunting them. "Now what?" Jesse panted, his breath coming in short gasps. "How do we stop it?" Mayo's mind raced. There had to be a way to stop it. There had to be. His thoughts flickered back to the well, to the energy he had felt when he touched the crystal. It had been powerful, but it had also felt wrong, like something had been awakened that shouldn't have been. "I don't know yet," Mayo said, glancing around. "But we have to figure it out. Fast." Meatball hopped up onto Mayo's shoulder, his little body trembling. "We'll figure it out together, buddy. We just need to be smart. It's not about fighting it. It's about finding its weakness." The creature was circling the clearing now, its claws scraping against the rocks as it prowled, looking for any sign of movement. Mayo swallowed hard, his mind racing. There was only one thing left to do. They had to find the creature's weak point and use the energy of the well, whatever power it had released, to stop it before it could cause any more destruction. "Stay close," Mayo whispered to Jesse. "And get ready." The hunt had just begun. Chapter 25. The Power of the Well. The creature prowled the clearing, its glowing eyes scanning every shadow, every rustling leaf. The ground beneath its paws seemed to tremble, like the earth itself was recoiling from its presence. Mayo's heart raced, the weight of the situation settling heavily on his shoulders. They were outmatched, outnumbered by something ancient, something far beyond their understanding. But there was one thing they had, the power of the well. "We can't just sit here, Mayo," Jesse whispered urgently. "We need to do something." Mayo nodded, his fingers tight around the rough bark of the tree. His thoughts raced. The crystal in the well, he had felt its energy. It had been raw and untamed, like a force trying to break free. And now, that force was free. But how could they turn it against the creature? "It's all connected," Mayo murmured, his voice barely audible. Meatball, perched on his shoulder, stiffened. What's all connected? The bulldog asked, his voice tense. You're not planning on doing anything crazy, are you? Mayo's eyes glinted with determination. The well, the creature, everything here is tied together somehow. When I touched the crystal, I felt its power. It's not just energy, it's like a force of nature. The creature was drawn to it. Maybe, just maybe, I can use it to stop it. Use it? Jesse asked, voice rising. How are you going to do that? You can barely handle it. I'll figure it out, Mayo replied, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at him. He could feel the power of the well deep inside him, a strange warmth spreading from his chest outward. He had to do this. For Pine Ridge. For his family. The creature growled again, its massive form moving closer to where they hid, its eyes locked on their position. Mayo could hear the thudding of its paws on the earth, each step like a drumbeat in his chest. His mind spun, he needed to act fast. Mayo, I'm getting a bad feeling about this, Meatball said, his voice tinged with concern. If we don't hurry, we're gonna be in big trouble. I know, Mayo said, his voice steady. But we don't have a choice. We have to stop it. Jesse shot him a look. How? Mayo turned to his older brother, his gaze intense. The power from the well, it's still here. It's still in the ground. If I can focus on it, I might be able to control it. Draw it out. But I'll need you to cover me. When I start, the creature might go after me. You have to distract it. Jesse hesitated, his brow furrowed with doubt. What if it doesn't work? Then we fight it however we can, Mayo said, clenching his fists. We don't have a choice. Meatball barked. I'll help. I may be small, but I've got plenty of fight in me. With a final nod, Mayo pushed off from the tree, stepping into the clearing. The creature's eyes locked onto him immediately, a guttural growl building in its chest. Mayo's heart pounded, but he stood tall, trying to steady his breath. Everything here is tied together somehow. When I touched the crystal, I felt its power. It's not just energy, it's like a force of nature. The creature was drawn to it. Maybe, just maybe, I can use it to stop it. Hey, Jesse shouted, his voice loud enough to draw the creature's attention. He picked up a rock and tossed it toward the opposite side of the clearing. The creature's gaze snapped away from Mayo, and it charged in the direction of the noise, roaring as it went. Mayo didn't waste a second. He focused, his hands outstretched, feeling the pulse of energy deep in the earth, like the heartbeat of the world itself. The power from the well had called to the creature. Now, Mayo would call it back. He concentrated harder, closing his eyes, blocking out everything else. The warmth inside him grew, spreading through his body until it felt like the very air around him was thick with energy. The ground beneath his feet trembled, the energy responding to his focus. He could feel the connection, like a thread between him and the well. It was pulling at him, urging him to release it, to let it flow through him. A low hum vibrated in the air, and Mayo's vision blurred. The energy surged, and the pulse from the well grew stronger, drawing the creature's attention back to him. Its growl grew louder, more furious, as if it could sense the power that was being called. But Mayo didn't falter. He held his ground, his eyes locked on the creature. He was the one who had awakened it. Now he would be the one to control it. With a shout, he extended his arms fully, releasing the energy he had harnessed. The ground beneath him cracked, and the energy shot up into the sky, a blinding flash of light that illuminated the entire clearing. The creature screeched, its eyes wide with fear as it staggered backward, its dark fur standing on end. The power from the well surrounded Mayo, coiling around him like a protective barrier, and the creature's glowing eyes began to dim. "Now!" Mayo shouted to Jesse. Jesse, understanding immediately, grabbed a branch and rushed forward, swinging it toward the creature. The blow landed with a sharp crack, and the creature howled, backing away further. But it was the energy from the well that was truly forcing it back, the power surging and forcing the creature to retreat. Mayo didn't stop. He continued to channel the energy, pushing it out from his hands, directing it toward the creature. It was too much for the creature to handle. With one final roar, it staggered backward, falling to its knees as the light around it grew brighter and brighter. Then, with a final, explosive crack of energy, the creature vanished, dissolving into the air as if it had never existed. The clearing fell silent, the tension evaporating into the night. Mayo collapsed to his knees, exhausted, the energy from the well dissipating with the creature's disappearance.
Mayo.
Jesse ran over, grabbing his arm to help him up. You did it. You actually did it. Mayo could barely speak, his breath shallow and ragged, but a smile tugged at his lips. We did it, he murmured. Meatball bounced excitedly around them, his tail wagging furiously. I knew you had it in you, Mayo. That was some serious magic. Jesse shook his head, still in awe. I can't believe it! We actually stopped it. Mayo looked around the clearing, his heart still racing. The creature was gone, but the power from the well still lingered in the air, a reminder of what they had just faced. The town of Pine Ridge was safe for now, but Mayo knew this wasn't the end. Whatever had been awakened in that well, whatever ancient force had called to the creature, was still out there, and it wasn't going to stop. We've won this round, Mayo said, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. But we'll need to be ready. There's more to this story. Meatball nodded sagely. I've got a feeling we're just getting started. To be continued.